and welcome to today's segment of The Power of Money. I'm your host, Michelle Graves, known nationally as the Money Lady. Since 1976, I've been providing real-time, real live information on financial matters to enable you to have the necessary information to make wise decisions for yourself and your family. And today, it's just me going solo. I will have guests on upcoming features and shows, but today I just wanted to talk to you myself on a direct basis. And I can appreciate your faithfulness, your loyalty, and your commitment to following this show over the years. And again, I choose to use the public venue so that I will not be constrained by my opinions or the opinions of my guests in terms of what a station would view as appropriate or not appropriate, particularly when it comes to financial information. Because, viewers, I am absolutely persuaded, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that the reason that so many people are illiterate financially, do not understand how markets work, don't even understand why we're in the financial turmoil we're in today, is because the education system was never designed to empower the average working person around the money system. And reason being is if you ever figured it out, you might get a little bit hot under the neck. Like, what? And I wanted to share these thoughts with you today because I do interface and cross paths with so many people, all kinds of people, from the very affluent to just your regular working population to people that are barely making an existence overseas. So many people are barely surviving. So because of that, I have a perspective that's a little broader and probably for some of you less comforting because I'm real matter of fact about a lot of things. For example, in America, we may complain about our circumstances financially, but as I'm quick to tell people, it's only a problem if you have the ability to do better. In other countries, particularly the lesser developed economies in Africa and many parts of Asia and even South America, people are barely surviving. Over 90% of the world goes hungry every day. Now, you say, but what does that have to do with me? Well, it has everything to do with you, because if you understood financial systems, you would understand that the nature of capitalism is to look for cheap labor. And if American workers are not competitive in the labor market for producing goods and services, then they're going to go elsewhere. They're going to go into countries where people are barely making it. They're going to abuse them, take advantage of what they call opportunity to take the land, to take the people, to exploit their resources, and to have them work for barely sustenance. Now, before you say, well, is she an anti-capitalist? Let me just be very candid with all of you. I am a person that loves people. And it doesn't matter whether that person is in Asia or Africa or Europe or even the United States. I don't like to see people hurting and suffering and being hungry without adequate food and clothing and shelter because of a few people who have decided that it's going to be that way because that's what works for them. So I don't think when you use terms, you have to be very careful. As an economist by training and a banker by life skills, I can assure you that the industry is brutally focused on maximizing profit. And the mindset is not about making sure you get enough food in your stomach, or even if you have a place to live. The notion of homelessness in America is so ironic because we do have houses, we do have places that people can live. But if you can't afford to pay, even if the place is abandoned, you don't have a place. So I'm speaking to you today from my heart because I want you to hear what I'm saying. as it relates to those types of things. And that is that, what are you planning on doing in the days ahead? It's now 2012, mid-year. The year is half over. Can you believe that? The year is half over. And here we are. And for many of us, the situation is not getting better. The situation is getting worse. The unemployment, for all they'd like to tout about unemployment, the reality is this: over 50 million people in America, and that number is growing, have been permanently displaced from the marketplace, meaning there's no place for them to get a job. And relocating, which is a venue that was done in the past, people would go to another place and then they would do elsewhere. So you have this type of thing going on where people don't move, they can't afford to move, they can't afford to relocate, so they're moving in with their families. Large families are all starting to move in together. That's causing some real stress in family dynamics because, let's face it, when you've got 4 and 5 households trying to live together, when all of them are used to living apart, then it creates some very, very untenable dynamics in the household, and a lot of stress. And then you add on children, and then you add on animals, and then you begin to wonder if I'm in animal farm myself. Anyway, all kidding aside, because this is really not funny. This is a major demographic shift, and the implications have not yet been evaluated by economists, by sociologists, and even by scientists, because this type of behavioral pattern is not characteristic of how people are accustomed to living. But I'm here to tell all of you that it's going to accelerate. More and more people are going to be living together, are going to try to share their resources. Limited though they be, it still stretches when you have more people in the household contributing. And in fact, in most of the world, I hate to give you this, but it's the truth. In most of the world, people live like that. When you go to Africa, you will find that it's called a village. Everybody lives in their own little areas, but everybody works collaboratively and cooperatively for the benefit of the village. They watch over each other, they are attentive to each other, they have headship and leadership operative in those environments. Same thing in other countries. The custom is communal type of living and shared resources. In America, we always touted the individualistic, I got it going on, John Wayne kind of mentality. But again, things have changed, and I'm trying to bring you into that truth so that you can begin to make the necessary decisions and not to hold on to dreams that are no more. As I was coming to the station this morning, I had a lengthy conversation with a woman that I'm quite proud of her, and the fact that she's gone back to school and she's gotten her degree, and now she's got a full ticket for grad school with stipend and all the things that go along with success in education. And she is going to be an astounding individual, always is, but now she's going to get the necessary requisite skills to make her successful in that field. And we talked very openly about a lot of things. But I shared with her, I said, it's hard for people to recognize change. And most of the time, change is imposed upon us rather than us being change agents. The challenge is going to be, as we move into this new paradigm of relationships, of how money is made, business is transacted, are you prepared to be a change maker? Meaning, are you willing to walk out your destiny with responsibility, or are you willing to let change come upon you and be imposed upon your life? And I say this very openly because I challenge every one of my viewers today to look at your skills, to look at what you have. All of us have gifts, talents, and skills. Gifts come from heaven. Talents are resident in us, and skills are the training you got to maximize and leverage the gifts and the skills that you have, the talents that you have resident in you. How many of you are willing to take that really, really major step. And it's not a leap of faith as much as it is a step for your destiny. Many times as we face change, and that change may be the loss of a job, the change may be the loss of a spouse, the change may be divorce, the change may be your children are grown and have their own lives, the change may be all of a sudden you look in the mirror and you're not 20. That's what I found out. These are all life changes, and there's not a thing you can do about it. There's not a thing you can do about it other than shift. You may find that relationships have changed, that people that worked with you and that you grew up with, all of a sudden you have very little in common because they've gone one way, you've gone another way. But it simply means that when change is looking at you, viewers, now you have the opportunity, the privilege of recasting. Literally, like in a movie, you've got another script, a fresh new script. So rather than embracing change with fear, embrace change with joy and expectation. Rather than saying, I lost my job, can you rethink that thing and say, you know what, the person I worked for no had need for my skills. And I'm excited because that just means that I have an opportunity to look at my skills and find a suitable match for what I do. And that match may be, rather than working for one person, I choose to start my own business and work for many other people. Now, for a lot of people, that's not a good thing, because if you didn't do well for one person, I don't know about thousands of other people. But for many of you, that is a provocation to begin to move actively with great expectation for the change that is now upon you. So I want to talk about that from the context of, again, financial change. Because when you lose your job, or when you are finding yourself inundated with situations that are intolerable financially, you don't have enough money. You simply don't have enough money. And many of you seniors know exactly what I'm talking about, because you don't have enough money. You're trying to figure out how I'm going to get through this with my gas bill, my water bill, which is going up, with my mortgage or my rent or my real estate taxes, which are going up because the municipalities are broke. So here you are. But may I encourage you, this now presents an opportunity for you to begin to think, I'm in the middle of a change situation. So do I react with panic, because panic does not produce anything? Or do I lay down my situation, put it to pen, look at it objectively, and then begin to look at what are the changes that you may need to make in your budget? And it's incredibly important, because one thing is for sure: seniors, widows, retirees, people that are living on fixed budgets and fixed incomes, things are not going to get better for a long time. Our president was very kind when he said we've got a few years ahead. For some of us, we're not going to see a change for our lifetime. Why? Because the changes upon the world. It's not just your little world, it's the changes upon the entire world. People are living their lives differently, and they're living their lives with very different expectations. When you look at the People's Republic of China and the abject poverty that huge 3 billion people and counting nation was confronted with prior to the advent of Mao Zedong, who was their president. And he was responsible for the Chinese Revolution and a lot of the things that happened, good and bad, to this huge people nation. And now you see that next generation, the younger ones, want more things, want better things, want to amass money, want to have cars. In fact, I just couldn't believe they got cars everywhere, brand new cars. They're driving cars. And you looked at a nation that 80 years ago, 50 years ago, was in abject poverty. And now here they are. Now, it can be argued, and with a lot of credibility, I might say, that the American people facilitated their prosperity. But before you become one-sided in that, may I remind you, because we're talking globally, we're talking about a change, that we benefited from their cheap labor. Americans benefited because we were able to buy things cheaply. Hello, Walmart, China. And in buying things cheaply with American dollars, we empowered them to become the formidable nation they are today. And trust me, I don't have to tell you, you already know that they are formidable. But it came out of our pockets. It did. We got what we wanted, but they got what they needed. So I'm not prepared to give a value judgment on any of that. I'm just simply prepared to tell you this is a change situation, and the change that came into their world, which took them from a feudal poverty farm culture to a very, very ascending nation, was underwritten not just because of the politics of communism, but also because the American people were eager and greedy for cheap stuff. So including TVs and DVDs and bigger screens, all of those things that became a part of the culture. So what am I trying to say today? I'm saying to you today that change is upon you. The opportunity is presented before you, and that you have got to be willing to embrace the change and even become the change, as Gandhi said, you know, which is you become the change. Don't talk about it, you become it. And that's tough, because we are creatures of habit. We like things predictable. We don't like things coming at us full speed ahead, and we're not really prepared to address it. But I'm here to tell you today, I encourage you to address it. Back to the finances, which is what I do and what makes my world exciting. For so many of you, your income collapse, you're finding yourselves without work, or the work you are able to get is a minimum compensation job with no benefits, no vacation, no time off, no sick, but you got a job. And you're finding yourselves in situations that 10 years ago even, you could not imagine doing this. I mean, for those of you that have homes that you've paid for faithfully for all of your life, to find out that your home is not worth anything and that that's money you literally threw out the window, that's not a good feeling. But it is real. It is as real as me talking to you today. For many of you, the prospect of not being able to buy a car every other year, which was your habit, and to make use of the car you have and to stretch the years out and to repair it is a change. For some of you, not being able to enjoy entertainment and the lifestyle issues that you liked, that's a change. But if one does not make the change, meaning to tighten up your budget, to live not within your means, viewers, I need you to live below your means, meaning doing more with less, stretching things, passing up the fast food. It's not good food for you anyway. I mean, we already know, the science is already in place to show that that type of eating has caused so many people to be obese, to have health issues, etc. So now you're going to have to live within your means, below your means is my goal, and then stretch. You're going to have to actually cook meals, feed your families, whether it's the husband cooking, the wife cooking, or single, whomever. You're going to have to be at home doing this kind of stuff, because you're going to have to live carefully and prudently, because change is upon us. And that's not going to go away. In fact, as I believe and I predict, and my predictions over the years have been pretty accurate, change is going to accelerate. And for many of us, the biggest change we're going to find is that the government does not have the money to subsidize your lifestyle. And when I say subsidize, the government, through entitlement programs, provides assistance for almost 50% of the American population. That's significant. Where does the government get the money to provide assistance to 50% of Americans? Well, listeners and viewers, the government gets its revenues through taxes from you. That's how they get their money. That's called the Internal Revenue Service. That's called filing taxes. The government does not produce anything. It is living off of the wages and the earnings of the American population. So what happens when their revenues begin to diminish and they're not able to provide you with the same level of service that they have done historically? Well, over the last 5 years, we have made the shortfall up by borrowing money from first the American people, okay, in the form of treasuries. American people hold the largest portion of our debt. Can you believe that? We do. We hold this stuff. Followed by China and other countries. But the biggest holder of the United States debt as we speak is the American people. Yes, we're holding this stuff. And believe me, that's why they have no interest in stopping the spending. Because as long as we are bailing them out, as long as we're doing this, we're buying the debt, known as treasuries and treasury notes. We keep buying them because it's safe and stable, right? Then you're not going to find the government slacking back on spending in a major way. Because we're holding the paper, okay? So I'm saying this because the government has no venue for producing. It doesn't produce. It spends what it collects from you, from businesses, through taxation. That's how they pay for roads. That's how they pay for Social Security. They pay for workman's comp. They pay for unemployment. They pay for disability. They pay for Medicare. They pay for Medicaid, and on and all. Oh, and the farm subsidy. They pay for all of this, viewers, off of the backs of the American taxpayer. Now you know the truth. And frankly, I don't know how it's going to end. Well, it's going to end because if 50% of the country is picking up a check that they really didn't work for, and before seniors, you start hollering at me. I know you paid into Social Security and you expect to be paid out. But let me just segue quickly on this issue. Social Security was designed as a safety net by FDR right after the Great Depression and everything went kabutsy. He set this in place so people would not be impoverished in their older years. He never, ever, ever, when they made actuarial assumptions in the 1940s, people were not living to 80 and 90 and 100. Essentially, people were dead 3 to 4 years after they left the workforce, by 65, 66. Now seniors are, the fastest growing group of seniors are people over 100 years old, all right? I saw a woman the other day who just got an award. I'm a member of a garden society, and she came up and she is 90, and she was walking like she was 20. And I just kept saying it. She was like, I feel wonderful. And I was like, this is so great. But the reality is this. If everybody is living to 100, pulling on a fund where there is not money budgeted for you to live to 100, then you got a problem. And so I tell seniors not to upset you, but you need to look at other venues for living, because Social Security is absolutely heading to bankruptcy. It's just what it is. But there may be some lead time. There may be some things that can be done to preserve its integrity financially. But again, that's a change. Can you subsidize yourself if Social Security is kaput? If you're on Social Security disability, which is a fund that you didn't even pay into, and you're getting that monthly check, what happens to your world if it ceases? Not because they're bad people, but because we're not generating enough revenues to finance entitlement programs. And so you're seeing these things begin to implode and collapse, not just on a federal level, but on a state level. So many states are dangling by the thread with Medicare and Medicaid costs because they were not anticipated when they did these plans. So why am I saying all of this? Because I want to emphasize to all of you again that I'm speaking to you not only as a money lady, but also as a human being who is having a shared experience with all of you. I'm not happy with gas prices. Not at all. They may be down for a minute, but they're not $1 a gallon. Those days are gone. That's not going to happen. I look at the gas and then I think about, should I buy an electric car? But what that is going to do if you buy an electric car is it's going to tax ultimately resources, and that you're going to find your electric bill is going to be higher. Do you want to participate in the little midget cars that came out of India that actually are kind of scary on the road? You say, don't hit that car because it's over, and don't drive that car because, I don't know. But anyway, that is a response to trying to minimize expense. Do you do a scooter? Do you do a motorcycle? What do you do to make a change? Do you do a skateboard? That's interesting, particularly if you live in California. But I'm trying to say that people are trying to adapt to change. And as a part of that, it's important for me to reinforce to you that change is a necessary part of life. And the sooner you get to it, the better off that you will be. I personally feel that most senior citizens should not continue, particularly over the age of 80, to struggle in a home that they've been in for all their life that's paid for. What they need to do is look at some other options and alternatives to try to get money out of that house so that they can begin to finance and fund their long-term care. Why? Because the government is not going to take care of people who have long-term care issues, Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, diabetes, high blood pressure. And as you age, these conditions accelerate. And for so many people, they will not let go of this house. Oh, I got to give my kids the house. No, your children want money. They don't want the house. And you really don't want the house either, because you can't take care of it. You can't maintain it. Houses need a lot of work, particularly older houses. It wasn't old when you bought it, but it is 40 years of living in the house is not a new house. So you have maintenance issues, and your income is now fixed and limited. I know for widows, you can't afford it. $695 a month is the average income for a widow. That's scary. But yet, because of the unwillingness to embrace the opportunity to live differently and to do things differently, you will stay in a home that's killing you. It's hard to understand, but human psychology works like that. So my position, and as I share with people, I'm officially a senior citizen and a baby boomer, boom, and I am learning to flow with the water, okay, to move it, to not be locked in by any of the definitions and the precepts times past of what is old, what is getting older, what does that look like in today's world. I'm beginning to recognize and grow to the reality that no matter how much money you have, money is not an infinite resource. It is not. And if you do not live carefully, you will find yourself impoverished in this country. Now, the plus is that you can always do things to make money. That's a big thing in America. Don't minimize it, the ability to create money. You can always go back to school, particularly online, to enhance your skills so that you can do other things. it's a great big opportunity. I figure I'm 60. I'd like to live to 120. That's another 60 years. God knows what I'll look like, behave like, be about, think like in another 60 years. So my challenge to all of you is to begin to handle your affairs in a mature and responsible way. I don't want to sound like a mother hen, but I do want to say to you that finances have to be consistent with the changes that we're in. For those of you that are accumulating money through traditional savings vehicles, such as certificates of deposit, I don't have to tell you that a CD is earning very little. And in fact, you can't live on that. So maybe, just maybe, you want to look at some other things. Like rather than hoarding all your money into a CD, maybe you need to buy a paid up long-term care insurance policy so that if and when that day comes, and it is, you will have the necessary insurance to ensure that you stay in a safe facility with people that actually care about you. That's a decision people know. Well, what am I going to live on? Well, the issue is not what you're going to live on. The issue is who's going to take care of you. And that is something that you have to deal with as a reality. That's a change thing. Children are scattered. Families are not the same. Even those children that live with you may not be open to having you there as a person that they give care to, that they wash behind, that they clean you, the things that are normally a part of long-term care. So again, that's a change decision. And I stress to you this because in my private practice, one of the most difficult things I'm encountering with people is their total resistance to the changing world, the changing economy, and how their money decisions have to change. As I tell seniors, I am not going to accumulate a ton of money in your bank account when you have not taken long-term care insurance, because if you do have to go on the government's dole, everything you have, everything, minus $1,500 is gone. You can't have anything. And that could have been avoided. So I want to encourage you to take a hard look at that. And if you need to call me, that you call me and that you make the necessary decisions. The same thing on life insurance. I am a big proponent of life insurance for young people. Why? Because they have children, they have needs, they have bills, and should they die, the family will suffer. So I'm a strong proponent of life insurance for that venue. But there are policies today that are what we call living life insurance, where you can get a policy, and if you need the money, you can begin to live on the money as an income stream. That's powerful. There's also a venue known as a 1035, which the government, under the Pension Protection Act of 2006, I think, don't hold me to it, but I think, will allow you to move money from annuities as well as life insurance into specialized policies that will pay for long-term care if you use it. But if you don't use long-term care, it will allow you to experience the benefits of that policy, which could be income or it could be an inheritance for your children. A lot of people say, I don't want to do long-term care because I may not use it. And I say, but why do you have fire insurance on your house? Why do you have car insurance on your car? The purpose of insurance is to mitigate risk. It doesn't mean that that is going to be your story. But if you're in a car accident and you do not have a car insurance, that's a problem. If your house burns down and you don't have property and casualty insurance, that's a problem. You don't have any protection. So again, I share with you, there are venues out here today that will enable you to transit during this change period. The notion of passing on an inheritance to your family and children remains my heartfelt issue. I want to see people be able to pass a legacy. But beyond that and greater is, I want you to be able to take care of you. I want you to be able to have the necessary resources so that you are not dependent, that you are not impoverished, that you are not struggling like so many people are. And I do mean it's more than seniors that are struggling out here today. There's a lot of working people that are struggling as their benefits are being off. And I do mean that. That is a real thing. The government is not extending unemployment. Many people have been getting unemployment for 3 years and all this, and didn't look for jobs and felt that things were going to get better and didn't understand that change was in the air, that it was here. And now they have no more checks coming, and they are broke, and they're terrified, and it's like, what am I going to do? And I'm going to tell you, this is what you're going to do. You are going to embrace the change, and you are going to look for employment or a venue to make income. That's what you're going to do, because that's the way the world functions. People in other countries do not get unemployment when they lose their